This is today's business leaders. Actionable advice from real-world professionals. And now here's your host, Gabe Arnold.
All right, so on the show today, I have James PM Gaffney, aka Uncle Jimbo. We're going to talk about entrepreneurship, design, possibly kerning, which I don't even know what that means, and other things that relate to pink or fuchsia or people in pink suits. Welcome to the show, James.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. Thanks for coming on, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Glad to be here.
You are one of the weirdest people I know and somebody that is becoming a great friend of mine. So this is a huge pleasure. So I really appreciate you taking time with us today.
No, I appreciate it. And you know, the weirdness is it's all a facade. I'm actually incredibly normal. It's just all a show. And I do it for you, Gabe. I do it for your entertainment. And really that's why I'm out there. I'm just out there to entertain people. I offer no real value. It's just all jokes and, you know, magenta backgrounds.
Maybe there is a little value in there. You just have to dig a little deeper. There was this one post the other day, like I said, every 6 to 8 months, and it was really good about being authentic on social media. So if you want to dig through years of pink posts, then you guys can do that. But in all seriousness, or at least a little bit of seriousness, when did you first realize that you were an entrepreneur?
Honestly, not that long ago. I've been in business for 20 years for myself, been in the branding and design game essentially my entire life, but I never really considered myself an entrepreneur. I was a freelance designer or a freelance branding guy or whatever, but I didn't really consider myself a real business in a lot of ways. And that it held me back in some ways. In some ways it allowed me to be a little bit freer, because I could just be wild and stupid and crazy because I wasn't running a business. I'm just a freelancer. But honestly, it probably about 5 years ago is when it really clicked to me that, you know, I've got a business. I'm building a legacy for my children, and you know, providing for a lot of kids. But mainly it was kind of a switch where I realized that, you know, this is my legacy. What I'm building is, you know, it's what I'm going to leave behind in a lot of ways. And I didn't want the thing that I left behind to be lame and boring. And like everything else that everybody else is leaving behind, I wanted it to be, like you said earlier, authentic and, you know, a little bit crazy at times, but yeah, that's me. And, yeah, so it's not been that long that I would have considered myself an entrepreneur. And actually, I hate that word. I think that word's way overused and become so diluted, or diluted that, it's hard to tell who's really an entrepreneur and who's just, you know, they've got a hobby that they're pursuing.
That's a very fair statement. And I think you're right. I think it's super, super diluted, especially with people saying, oh, I'm an online entrepreneur, and like you said, that's a fair and honest and authentic assessment of, like you said, well, I was a freelancer, and that's where we start out. I mean, all of us start there. And the difference to me between freelancer and entrepreneur is entrepreneur, you know, you own a few businesses, you have systems, you have a team, you've scaled up, you've kind of mastered the art of business. Freelancer is you have a couple clients, and when you don't have that job anymore, you're looking for a couple more clients. There's a big difference. So I would agree with that distinction.
Yeah. Do you think there's automation? Do you think automation kind of can pull you out of freelancing and into more entrepreneurship?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's my whole foundation that I finally figured out, you know, I don't know, going on 7-8 years ago now, is like, if I can automate half this stuff, then I can start getting paid in my sleep. And then I realized how to automate with software. And then, like, I think I can automate with people. And I started looking at how to scale, you know, without me. And that's definitely that's a great definition of at least a step in the right direction. Because otherwise you're just selling time for money and you're a consultant or a freelancer. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but that doesn't make you an entrepreneur.
Well, it really caps how quickly or how far you can scale.
Yeah.
You know, if Gabe Arnold is touching every product or project that goes through your business's doors, you've only got so many hours in the week, and you know, try as hard as we may, we have yet to really build AI that can match my brilliance. So
yes, your insanity, but
brilliance, insanity is the same.
whatever. But yeah, no, that's totally the thing. And it's like, there is a scaling out point for the normal marketplace at a cost per hour. Like, depending on what I'm doing, I'm 500 to 1,000 an hour now, which has taken me 20 years to get there. And that's great. But I can't realistically go back to those same people and ask them for 50,000 an hour. And I'm not, I forget what Tony Robbins is. He's kind of pricey hour wise, but there's only about 100 people on the planet that should hire Tony Robbins at that rate. And there is a scaling out point where if you're just trying to scale your own time, it's very difficult. There is a cap point there. Everybody said, and I mean, I did a talk about this last night, which is true. Like, everybody needs to charge more and know their value and know their worth. But my focus there was like, quit working for minimum wage. That's not what we're talking about here. What we're talking about here is like, there is a topping off point. Like, I mean, let's be honest, designers are worth X dollars an hour. There's a range there, but I'm not going to pay you $500 an hour to design, a homepage for me. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And if you are able to get that, that's great, but it's not going to scale, in my opinion. So I totally agree. You got to automate. You got to build systems and teams to be an entrepreneur.
Well, I mean, that's what Andy Warhol did. He was an artist and he was famous. He was getting famous. But then he realized that, if he's going to produce enough art to get rich, he's going to have a team to help him produce that art. And it's the same way with all of us. We're going to cap out at some point. And, the majority of people, if you tell them you're going to charge them $500 an hour, they're going to shit their pants and leave.
Yes.
But if you say, I'm going to come in and double your revenue, they're going to say, okay, whatever. And they're going to, break out the checkbook and, start writing. And, it's difficult. And that's something, I've talked about quite a lot, and especially coming from the freelance world, with people, is that, pricing is really hard. And if you want to make money, sometimes it's really, really difficult to do it on an hourly model. Because honestly, most people, if I tell them my hourly rate, I never hear from them again.
Yep. But
if I give them a flat project rate, they're fine.
Yeah.
They start worrying that those $500 an hour add up really quick. But at $500 an hour, you're fucking good at what you do. You're fast at it.
Yep.
And in in an hour for $500, you can deliver more value than somebody else can deliver in 10.
Or in a month.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. No, and you're right. And that's a good point too, because when you do get to this level, I rarely quote people my hourly. Like, if they just straight say, hey, I want to pay by the hour, then I quote them, and nobody wants to do that. If I'm like, what results do you want? It's pretty easy to charge the right money. So that's definitely a good point. And you've only been on Facebook for a couple of years, right?
With this account, yes.
Okay.
And really, I've only been active on this account for 8 months now.
Okay.
Since March. Yeah.
So when I first heard of you, or was disgusted by you, or whatever happened, there was this guy in an RV who would start his lives like this.
Yes.
And for everybody listening to the audio later, James literally started the first minute of his live by slowly moving his hand into the screen silently.
Yeah.
And so I find this incredibly strange guy that used to go live at 5, and I don't know if that happens anymore, or if I'm just not a good friend. But
no, actually, it's been dead for a while, but it's coming back Monday.
Oh, sweet. Well, be sure to tag me at least in one of them, and I may or may not watch it. But
that's okay. It's just watch for the hand raise. The rest of it's crap anyway.
Exactly. But you did something that, I mean, to be honest, I have a lot of respect for you, because you did something that, being at least 1 or 2 years farther down the road than I am, I don't think I would have the guts to do at your age. And you kind of like burned your life to the ground and just toured the country in an RV with at least a few other kids and family members.
Yes.
And tell me about what that was like and why you chose to do that. It sounds like a big life reset, but I'll let you tell me what happened or why you did that.
It really was a life reset. My wife and I kind of woke up one day. Well, it took several years to really make the decision, but we woke up and kind of realized that, we weren't we weren't as happy as we could be. And that there were, honestly, a lot of people in our lives that we felt like we had an expectation to live up to. And in looking back on it, it wasn't an expectation that we had to live up to. It was an expectation that we had to live down to.
Sure.
People expected us to be one way. People expected us to say certain things and act a certain way and show up at certain times. And in a lot of ways, they expected me to be a dour, hateful loser. And that wasn't me. That wasn't me. You know, as crazy as I can be, as negative as I can sound at times, I'm actually a very, very happy person. I'm a very positive person. I like to help people and lift people up. But in our previous life, it felt like everybody expected me to do exactly the opposite. And that was just for me from a business standpoint. For my wife and for the rest of our family, it sort of followed that same route. We left expectation, and we left what other people thought of us, to pursue something that we knew would be better. And it was, in a lot of ways it was, in a lot of ways it was awful, to be honest. And we're still out there. I mean, we're still, I guess, technically homeless. But it's something I wouldn't trade for all the comfort in the world, because it strengthened my relationship with my wife, which, before we left, was not doing real well. It has really strengthened my relationship with my kids. And it has strengthened all the kids' relationships with each other. It's living in that close of quarters with that many people. You get to know each other really quick, and you start to realize that there's a big difference between loving somebody and liking somebody. And I'm not real sure my kids liked me all that much, until now. And now I understand that they like me and they want to be around me and that we all have a great time together.
Yeah.
You know, we always loved each other, but there were times when we didn't like each other. And by being up each other's ass 24 hours a day, that has changed really rapidly in the past 16 months. So it's been good. It's been really good. It's been crazy. But it was absolutely everything we'd hoped it would be, and then some. But in some ways, it's also really sucked.
Yeah. You chose to reset. I obviously take responsibility for the choices that led me to reset, but I've had to reset my life pretty hard 3 times. And it's the greatest thing ever afterward. And there's a rule that I have, that Rachel and I have between us, which is like, the only rule is to treat each other well. And it reminds me a lot of what you're saying about, like, yeah, you might love that person, but do you really like them? And it's like, which sounds like the wrong progression. But if you really like somebody, then I think you have a different depth of relationship than just like, ah, shit, they're my kid or my wife or somebody I have to love. That's a little bit different.
Yeah.
And how many kids are there, or how many went with you?
4 went with us. We have 5 total, but only 4 went. Our eldest is 23.
Yeah. So, I mean, that must have been an experience in itself. And it reminds me of this movie I watched about this surfing family that used to travel around in an RV. You probably know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, the dad was kind of crazy.
Yeah. No connection there, but
no.
But it was a really interesting thing. They like chronicled this family's life about what they all grew up and did and what happened, and it's just really interesting. And I was homeschooled all the way through, so I mean, I know what that phenomenon's like. And I don't agree with or like everything that happened in my childhood, but one thing that I do really appreciate is, like, my siblings and I are really close to this day, and like, we definitely have a camaraderie and closeness that I don't think happens in a traditional setting. So, so it's definitely an interesting experiment, and it sounds like it turned out okay, which is really cool.
Yeah, it did. I mean, it's still in progress, and it will remain in progress probably for another year. But it's great. It's been the best thing we've ever done. You know, it really ties back to, you know, I believe, and not all my life have I believed this, but I do believe that if something's not working for you, why are you doing it? You know,
Yeah.
why do you continue to get up and do it again and again and again if you hate it? If it's not working perfectly, why not blow it up and start over again? Um,
Yeah.
you know, what's the worst that could happen? You have to go back to your old life.
Yeah.
You know, but what's the best that could happen? You fix everything and everything is awesome.
Yeah.
So, and it, you know, and I've had people tell me that it was courageous that we did this kind of stuff, and it really wasn't an act of courage. It was just maybe an act of trust,
Hmm.
trusting that we would be provided for, trusting that we wouldn't kill each other somewhere halfway across the country.
Yep.
But you know, I bet, I bet on myself. We bet on our family, um, and it's even if you crap out, how bad can it get?
Yeah. I think right there, I think that's entrepreneurship. I think entrepreneurship is betting on yourself and not everybody else. And I think it's being willing to blow it all up and start again.
Yep. Yep. Because we all make mistakes.
Yeah.
We all drop balls and blow things up unintentionally, and you know, break fingers and all that stuff. But you can't let that stop you from trying. You can't let that. You know, at what point do you say, "Well, it's a little too dangerous, so I'm just going to give up and you know hope that my next life is better"?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that's like, there's things I wouldn't go do again, but all of my life resets have been incredibly rewarding and valuable, and they're incredibly valuable to me now. And so now you guys Airbnb it and travel around. And you said to me the other day that you're pretty sure you're going to land out in Utah, right?
Yes. Yep. Yep. April Fool's Day.
Very cool. That's going to be awesome.
Yeah. Stoked.
So yeah, so thanks for a little background there. I think that's really colors in a lot of who you are and at least some of what you do. Um, Talk to us a little bit about kind of transitioning here, because you're one of the designers that I actually really respect. Despite all the shit I give you on Facebook, I actually respect your work and your opinion and what you do. And if you know you have your approach just really resonates with me. And I think for for business owners, for entrepreneurs, um, in my experience, and you're the expert in this field, not me, design and branding gets focused on at the wrong time and in the wrong way almost all the time.
Yep.
My opinion is that, like, I'm helping one of my clients right now with just like set up a product and do a proof of concept, and I told them, don't get hung up on the logo, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Because you need to prove that what you're trying to sell people want to buy. But once they do, they do really establish what they offer and who they're serving, then I think it's really important to focus on branding. So I think people get it out of sequence. But I'd like to hear, your kind of thoughts of what you would tell people who are starting out, how to lay the right framework, and then at what point you think people need to really start focusing in and investing in their brand.
Yeah. I echo a lot of what you say. I do think that people have a tendency to focus on design way too soon. A lot of times when I have a client that comes in that is just starting a business, and they want the whole shebang-a-bang. They want a logo, they want branding packages, they want print collateral, they want all this stuff, website, all these things, because they're quite positive they know their audience.
Mm-hmm.
And they know exactly what they're going to do and exactly where they're going to go. But, and you know this, and I would dare say that the majority of your audience knows this too. When you start a business, you're not really sure what's going to happen.
Yeah.
You could belly flop and crash and burn 3 weeks from now. You could start going and then get a big contract and realize that, oh, I've got to shift the entire focus of the business. I recommend that when people start out, they kind of start off minimally when it comes to a graphical presentation. You want something clean, you want something nice, but you don't need to nail it down into this is what it is, this is what it's always going to be. And, so let's start designing all the collateral around it.
Mm-hmm.
I recommend that people kind of get out there and start really testing the market with their product or their service and see where it goes, because I know that you're in the guerrilla group and there's a lot of talk about ICAs and all that stuff. You know how hard that is. You know how hard it is to really nail your ideal client.
Yep.
And you also know that it changes over time.
Yeah.
It changes based on you. It changes based on the economy. It changes based on the current conditions of marketing and all that stuff. So if you pigeonhole yourself into something that you're just pretty sure is going to work, you stand a really good chance of having to go through and rebrand 6 months or a year down the line. And it's a hell of a lot more expensive to rebrand than it is to wait, do something minimal to start with. And then once you really figure out where you're going, then you go guns blazing into the print collateral. You go hog wild with a logo and a branding style guide and all that stuff. So yeah, I mean, in a lot of ways, I talk myself out of a lot of money. Because people come and they want all these things, and I have to say, pump the brakes and let's see where your business goes, see where you feel, and then we can adjust later on. The other thing that I find out too, or have found, is that a lot of people don't really understand or even want to go through a branding exercise, or a brand exercise, I should say. It's okay. I just want a logo. I need a logo, and it's got to look killer, and it's got to represent me, and it's got to talk to my audience, and it's got to say this, and it's got to have flashing lights and all this other shit on it, without really understanding their promise, without understanding their real modus, and their way of operating. And you can have the most kick-ass branding in the world. You can have the greatest logo in the world, but it doesn't overcome lack of planning. It doesn't overcome lack of real market understanding. I can't tell you how many logos I've designed for t-shirt companies that lasted all of 6 weeks. And that's fine. I made money doing it. They looked great. Everybody was happy, but the business is gone. And it happens all the time. It's whatever percentage of business startups fail.
Right.
So if you stand an 80% chance of failing, don't pump $20,000 into all this branding and collateral and stuff before you have a completely unproven concept. Just wait. And I hate to say that because, again, it's talking me out of money, but I'm more concerned in giving somebody something that's sustainable and that can work for them for years.
No, and that's why I respect you, because you're not in it. You're not in it for the upfront money. And the other thing that came to mind as you were talking about that is that if we start investing too early in brand and logo and stuff like that, we're actually just investing in our own ego, which is not going to work well. It's like getting the super fancy office when you don't have any clients or a team. It's like, you may look awesome, but you're going to go out of business because you're spending time and money on the wrong things. And you reinforce egotistical behavior when you're sure you know everything about your audience and your business, and you're not mature enough as a business or business owner to overdo it. And I really like what you said there, which I wish I would have known long ago, is just start with something really simple and minimalistic, because that's a lot easier to build onto than an extensive brand package that you find out is completely wrong.
Yep.
So
you got this killer website and you got to do it all again.
And so that's definitely wise, and it just speaks to who you are, and that you're going to be in the marketplace and in the industry for years. You're not just feeding short-term desires, because feeding short-term desires hurts everybody.
Yeah.
And
like we were saying earlier, we want to build legacy. We want to build something that lasts. We don't want to just make some money and then run off. We want to build something that lasts. And that's, I think, what most people want.
Yeah. And I think your first 5-10 years in business, you have no idea what you're doing. And then when you lose your hair or it turns gray, then you start thinking about legacy. So I would agree with that.
I'm only 26 years old, Gabe. I don't know what you're talking about.
I know. But anyway, speak to a little bit about like branding and expand on that, because I think people think brand and they think, oh, my logo and my colors. And I don't think that's necessarily what that is.
That's part of it. I mean, that's part of it. There is a difference, and I got kind of chastised by a mutual friend the other day about this on one of my posts, and I asked what the difference, or asked people for their opinion of the difference between brand and branding. And there's a totally different thing. Your brand is is your promise to deliver what only you can deliver.
Yeah.
Every time. And it doesn't have to be a really absolutely stated promise, but your branding is the communication of that promise. And, you know, and in total, that your branding will tell that promise. It doesn't have to tell it every single time. So it's not a tagline.
Mm-hmm.
It's just your entire branding should tell the promise of your brand. And I think that people do have a tendency, when you say branding or brand, they do think of logo. And logo is an important part.
Right.
But, you know,
Small part, right? It's a small part.
It's a very, very small part. I mean, you know, it can become memorable, and later on that memory can be, you know, it can be cool. But I mean, how many companies are out there that are just a logo, that everybody buys them just because it's a logo? Yeah, you can say, oh, well, there's Nike. Well, no, but Nike makes shoes.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's RVCA, or, you know, any of these other clothing manufacturers. You're not going to go out and you're not buying a logo. You're buying a t-shirt with a logo on it, maybe, but you're buying a product that has that logo on it. You're not buying the logo.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody really does. But people have this tendency to focus on it like that is that's the face of the brand, and that's the one thing people are going to remember. And it's not. People are going to remember how you treat them. They're going to remember the customer service. They're going to remember the excellent results you deliver, or nothing. And you know, it doesn't matter if you have the most whiz-bang logo or this whiz-bang website. Deliver bad customer service, don't deliver what you say you're going to deliver, people will hate your brand. And you know, they're not going to wear a t-shirt with your logo on it if they hate your brand, because you're an asshole or you don't deliver. And unless they wear it, you know, Sex Pistol style,
rip it apart
sort of stuff. Exactly. So
that's a good example. So when you walk into the department store and you've got the Nike logo on a t-shirt and you got something else from somebody we don't know, why would somebody, and you know, I know Nike's been in the news, I'm not talking about that, but in the grand scheme of things, why would somebody buy the Nike t-shirt over the unbranded t-shirt? So we're not buying the logo. What's influencing that, or what's important about the brand? Or it's not the logo, so what is the brand in that moment?
Recognition. I mean, it's just recognition. I mean, there is a certain amount of it that is prestige and, you know, class warfare and all that stuff. But there's a reason that one of the biggest expenditures in political campaigns are yard signs.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a reason that when you go to vote, there's yard signs just stacked up. And because what it is, people will vote for the last person they read their name. If they don't know them very specifically, they will vote for the person that they last saw. And it's the same thing with a brand. It's the same thing with clothes. You know, if brand X advertises more than Nike, and you saw brand X before you saw the last Nike ad, you're more likely to buy brand X unless Nike has given you warm, fuzzy feelings, whether that's great customer service, a great product, or prestige, or status symbol, any of that. I mean, the brand has to deliver more than their competitor if you saw their competitor last.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, I mean, you don't buy the logo. You buy the implication of the logo.
Right. It's the feeling that I've gotten either from use or from seeing marketing from whatever company that makes me feel like, oh, that's me. It's like I'm buying a feeling and status and trust and rebuying the experience I had, and I'm just voting with my dollars, right?
Right. Well, would you buy coffee if it just said better than Starbucks? If that was the brand name, better than Starbucks.
I might have joked,
buy
but
Starbucks because you know Starbucks.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, I don't know who that company is, so I'll go to Starbucks even though I know I'm paying more. I know I'm paying more. It's not out there, right? So
I mean, there's a myriad of places that have better coffee than Starbucks.
Absolutely.
McDonald's coffee is only marginally and in a very small amount worse than Starbucks coffee.
Mm-hmm.
But you trust Starbucks. They're the coffee experts.
Because of why? Why is that, do you think?
I don't know.
Okay.
No, I think that people, you know, again, there's a lot of prestige and a lot of status, and McDonald's, and I hate to keep harping on McDonald's, I know that's kind of my big shtick,
Mm-hmm.
but who in their right mind would eat a McDonald's product over anything else? It's garbage. I mean,
Yep.
McDonald's food is absolute garbage. McGriddle, the breakfast stuff, it's all trash. And objectively, it's worse than every other fast food place out there. But people will still flock to McDonald's because you know it. You know exactly what you're going to get. They have a history. And as sad as it is, there's a status symbol behind going to McDonald's. You know, and they could change their logo. They could change everything about them, and people would probably still go there.
Yeah.
Because it's McDonald's and they're an American classic. And that's hard to do. That's a really hard thing to do. You know, create this kind of iconic brand that people, you know, immediately associate with a good feeling. And I think, you know, and we're going to talk about it a little bit, but I think that's where Gillette really overstepped with their whole thing.
Yeah, catch me up on that, because I'm not that trendy apparently.
Yeah, it's kind of a big thing, and I honestly feel kind of a dick to have even brought it up today, because it's, you know, everybody's doing it. But now Gillette released this commercial, and it's a soft attack on men, in my opinion. And this is probably going to lose me a bunch of friends, and that's fine, whatever.
Won't be the first time today. You can keep going.
Well, what's funny, I actually keep very detailed records of my friends, and I can tell when I post things that are really effective, because I lose a shit ton of friends. And I enjoy that. But no, Gillette did this commercial, and it's for a foundation of, you know, let's make men better. You know, Gillette's whole thing is the best a man can get. Mm-hmm. So this one was something like, you know, better together or whatever. And it was really just kind of this soft pushing of this agenda against men. And it rubbed me the wrong way. I mean, I think it rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. And I think Gillette really overstepped what they were attempting to do, because they're a razor company. They sell razors. They're losing market share. And so it either was a valiant attempt to restoke their brand flame, or it was the last gasp of them going down in that flame. And I think it was the latter, honestly. I think it was kind of the IHOP thing.
Yeah.
I think that they tried to create this emotional connection that nobody really gives a shit about. Because I don't need my razor telling me how to raise my kids. I don't need a razor company telling me how to raise my kids. I need the razor to be cheap, effective, get the hair off my face, and, you know, not be a pain in my ass. And Gillette has failed at least one of those. Yeah, exactly. I was showing Gabe, I shaved before the show, and my Gillette razor actually cut me right there.
They heard, and they sent him a sharp razor that with a little edge on it to cut him, because they're like, you knock our brand, we'll knock you. But
yeah, I mean, I just have the razor holder. I use the cheap blades from Target in the holder.
Yeah, no, I would agree with you that number one, I don't think that's a way to get anything done with any group of people or with anything. Inspiration is not knocking people and telling them how shitty they are. You do that in joking, but you don't ever actually do that, which is why I do hang around you. And doing that is
the positive negativity. That's what I'm
exactly. That's what it is. And so number one, that's a dumb idea. And my other interesting question on it, because I'm uninformed apparently about this very important topic in our society, is I actually believe that Gillette has always marketed to women.
Yeah.
Always. I don't think they've ever marketed it to us. Because we don't, maybe you do, and I'm incompetent possibly in this front, but I have probably bought razors once in my life.
Yeah. The only reason I know what they are is because I've been using the same shit for 20 years.
Right.
You know.
No, what I mean, I buy it too, but not technically, because Rachel buys that for me. So my assumption is they've always been marketing to women, and they just crossed the line this time.
Yeah. I mean, There are a few things that men care about: beer, more beer, pizza, and women.
Yes.
And the rest of it, and your wife just picks it up, or your significant other just picks it up.
Exactly.
So,
yeah.
Boy, if we don't lose all of our friends over this one, Gabe, we're not doing it right.
I know we got to come back and try again, but
Yeah.
no,
I love women. I have no problem with women. I'm not a sexist. I have a problem with shitty advertising, and this falls firmly into that category.
Yes. Yeah, and it's a good example of think through what you're actually doing. And we go back to McDonald's. I would agree. I don't think that's the most nutritious meal you could choose. But one thing that they've done right is consistently for how many decades branded consistently, created a consistent experience. Whether or not we would say it's the healthiest in the world is not the conversation. They've created that consistent experience, and so people keep showing up. And that's actually a good testament to, I think, even as starting out or in any growth stage in your business, if you're Chevy right now and you want to be BMW someday, that's awesome, but get really good at being Chevy. Like, deliver something that gets you to where you're going, and don't worry about being, the hoity-toity top end until you actually deserve to be there.
And put your customer first. Put your customer and your customer experience first. People don't really care about the McDonald's logo.
Right.
They care about how McDonald's makes them feel.
Yeah. And they know what to expect every single time.
Promise. Again, it goes back to promise.
I think that's a better way for people to think about brand. And this is something that you've brought to light a lot over the last year or so of us knowing each other, of like, your brand is your promise. What promise are you making your clients? And that has been really helpful because, like, I had a horrible experience at a hotel this past weekend working on site with a client. I couldn't call you from the hotel because the internet sucked. I'm not sure when the last time, they painted or cleaned my room. I was trying to check out. It took me 15 minutes because people are out back smoking dope, which I don't care if you want to smoke dope. It's totally cool. But I was standing there trying to check out. I just had a horrible experience. The bar was horrible. The restaurant was horrible. So I called and got a refund because it's like, what? This isn't what I was promised from the website. And so that's what upset me. If they would have said, advertised as, we are the cheapest, shittiest hotel here and you can save a ton of money, I would have never asked for my money back.
Yeah, it's all good. It's all good.
And so it's definitely making that promise and delivering on it that makes a difference. And so we should promise what we can deliver and then deliver it. Yeah. And that really helps me think about brand.
If somebody promises you something and they deliver it, but they just deliver it,
mm-hmm.
It's just exactly what they said it was going to be, and no more, no less. You got good feelings about them. You might not leave them a nice review,
mm-hmm.
but at least you're not walking away pissed off, and going to tell everybody in the world how bad your experience was.
Right.
If you promise something and then over deliver it, or deliver it in a spectacular fashion, or faster than you thought, or cheaper or better, then you gain an evangelist, and that's ultimately that's the purpose of a brand, or branding, is to create an army of people that love you, and that will go out and spread your word, because it's a force multiplier.
Yeah.
Good branding is a force multiplier. We talked about automation and scaling earlier. If it's entirely up to me to make all the jokes and to do all the stupid shit for my brand, it's going to take me forever. But if I build my brand in such a way that it kind of consistently tells that joke for me, I don't have to keep telling the joke.
Yep. And I would encourage everybody watching and listening and listening to this later, go look up James on Facebook and watch him multiply his brand. He virally does what at the surface appears like really stupid shit. And it is a little bit stupid. But
it's very stupid.
And then people go out and copy him. And he even sucked me into spreading his brand last week. And then
you're just a content thief, Gabe.
Pretty much. But you'll watch him and he creates these little ripples, and then people wonder, who is this weirdo? And then they get to know him and they're like, wow, he's pretty cool. And look at his work and look what he can do. And I really like what you just said. I want to highlight again. You said, you create an army of evangelists when you do branding right. And it starts with delivering the promise. And then the tools, the mechanisms, the brand, the color, the website, whatever, of course, that's a part of it. But that's just a mechanism. That's just a channel to deliver on your promise. And of everything we've talked about, that's what I would encourage people to really take away and pay attention to, because that's what people are buying. It's the promise. The rest of it is details. They may not like orange and your logo's orange. They don't give a shit. That's not really what it's about.
Yeah. I mean, in the early going, it can be a problem. I mean, really, if your logo is orange and you're trying to talk to Alabama Crimson Tide people,
right, that
might be a problem. But at a certain point, people don't care about your logo. They don't really care about your collateral. That's more for bringing in new people once you're established. But people care more about the experience and less about what you say, because I can say all the cool shit in the world and tell you all this stuff I can do, but if I can't deliver it and the experience is bad, I can't talk myself back out of that.
And then everybody brands to their followers and their audience and their friends how bad that experience was, and that's your brand.
Yep.
We had that conversation this weekend.
Yes, and then you change your name and move to Zimbabwe or something. Yeah, and that's something too that I do see a lot of people doing, especially with a personal brand. Is you really got to be careful, because I mean, you fuck up a business brand, you start a new business.
Right.
You screw up Gabe Arnold.
That's hard to recover. I did that once.
You could get a nice piece and grow some more facial hair too, but
maybe.
Yeah.
Mike Cooper tells me I have to shave my head, so he tells me to go the other direction. So I'm close.
I wouldn't listen to anything Mike Cooper has to say.
I know, he's full of shit.
He's Canadian.
That's right. Sorry, Krista.
She's the good half of that relationship.
That's right. We'll trust her. Maybe she'll keep Mike in line.
Yes.
But in all seriousness, I appreciate you coming on, man, and just sharing your insight. Like I said, you're one of the few people that I actually trust when it comes to branding and design, and because you think about it at the business level and you're not just trying to sell me something for your own good. So that's one of the reasons I trust you. And everybody can check James out on Facebook, of course. He's tagged here. And you can also check out his site, Blue Dozen Design, which I'll drop in the comments here and we'll put in the show notes. But last but not least, who are you looking for, James? Like who can we send your way that is a good fit to work with you, or at least hang out with you on Facebook, worst case?
Good people. Good people. There's all this talk about niching down and really solidifying who you work with. And I understand that. But for me, my ideal client is Gabe Arnold, somebody I would actually hang out with and have a beer with. I've worked with a million different types of businesses and a million different types of people. And my favorite ones are the people that are just cool people. We can always do something cool together, and we can always have a lot of fun. And that's really what it's about for me. I certainly love seeing businesses grow, and I love being a part of that. But I don't like watching jerk-offs businesses grow. I want to lend my talents and my abilities to help grow good, honest, decent people, because I've got 5 kids.
Yeah.
And if I leave behind a world full of scumbags and narcissists, they're just gonna have a harder time. So
yeah. Well, thank you. I appreciate that, man. Cool.
Wait, can I still call you a scumbag?
Sure. As long as I can call you a dickhead.
Absolutely. It's Wednesday, right?
I think so.
You can call me anything you want on a Wednesday, and it's still a good day.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being on, and I appreciate you, man.
Absolutely. Thank you, Gabe. This has been a pleasure. I love you, brother, and happy to be on anytime.
Thank you.
You've been listening to Today's Business Leaders with Gabe Arnold. Remember to subscribe on iTunes. For more information, visit todaysbusinessleaders.com.